Mr. Abu Dieng. And then I've got Mr. Ahmed Said bin Hassa Al Shmili. I got everyone on board. Good morning. Good. So the objective of this panel session, and we have some really interesting experts today from very various areas, is to consider some of the issues involved with cross-border trade and investments. So today, actually, partnerships and even trade and investments are actually not a binary choice for companies. It's actually something that we all do. For ourselves, Digital Skills Foundation, we work actually on the whole of the African continent, and we're starting in other areas. And it highlights actually the link between trade and investment. So what we're going to look at today is the issues that are involved with cross-border investment, for which this is actually a great panel, and that will share their concerns, but also their recommendations. And I really would like to insist on a positive note at the end. And the reason I'm saying that is that I know COVID has been very challenging, and I hear that a lot of you have had loads of challenges with children in the house. To be honest with you, for me it's been a present. It's been actually really nice to have them back at the house. So I think it's a matter of perspective and to see how we can change and get a global outreach, but also work together to make it into a positive impact instead of just saying that COVID has been complicated. Because COVID actually has allowed us to reshuffle the ideas, to have new ideas, and to come up with a lot of innovations that weren't there. In the digital space, we've made a huge impact and a leapfrog forward in many areas. Even though people are lacking still a lot of skills, a lot of things are happening. So may I ask, Dr. Steele, from your experience, what are the major barriers to foreign direct investments, especially as it has to do with the domestic stakeholders? So you all have a mic next to you, and we will all try to stay on time for today because I think everyone is running over. So,
Pleasant good morning. I think one of the key issues and concerns is individuals are looking at when they're coming into a new region. The agreements that are structured are, a lot of times they're structured more in the favor of those that are local. And as a result of that, it creates a level of challenge for those who are coming on the inside to be incorporated and integrated into the culture. I think that's one of the important points, the culture. And as a matter of fact, the first point I really would like to bring to the awareness is the coming in stage. A lot of times we deal with just the investment and the building of the agreements, but we do not incorporate the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which deals with the immigrational status and making it easy for those individuals to integrate into the business sector. So I think that that's one of the barriers that is there. And if we can look at how can we foster relationships and agreements nationally and internationally, whereby countries will say, okay, when you're coming in, this is how we will work with you on the immigration side first, because I think that's important in going forward. So I think that's my point.
Mr. Ahmed?
Thank you very much for your questions. Let me talk about it from my experience when I am as a foreigner investor in some other countries outside of the UAE. One of the most important parts before we will enter to any country that we have to look at, as my colleague mentioned, which is the culture. So there is the thing which is related to the culture, which is the network, which is already built on the ground. And you are, as a foreigner, when you will enter to this market, so you are new in this market, so you will fight against the different companies or different stakeholders which is inside. So this will be one of the most what's called challenges that you will gonna face when you will enter to the new markets. And you have to find a solution to solve this issue. You have to understand the market before you will enter. It is not only going to such type of feasibility study institution to make it for you. It is for you to understand the market through perspective of the people who is on the ground. So you have to get connected inside. You have to look at the market from their eyes. There is a lot of things that you will not really see it and the feasibility study, which we already faced it. And then we discovered that we should be on the ground. We have to be there 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, it doesn't matter. This will be for you a time to investigate the markets before you will put your heavy investment inside such type of countries.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Just a comment, and I think it's one of the things that is coming up is intellectual property. Right? So intellectual property in terms of investment and trade obviously is one of the areas that is challenging. We're looking at the COVID vaccination at the moment, which is becoming a global issue in terms of the vaccinations and the IPs. Any ideas on that? Archie?
Well, thank you so much. Firstly, thank you so much for balancing the panel. We see the serious gender dominance, but of course I'm more than happy to be here. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to reunite with friends and colleagues in this distinguished audience. Just a quick anecdote to wonderfully mentioned by my fellow panelists. I think one of the key issues that we face today is protection of IP, single window clearances, and of course understanding the political climate when we do cross-border investments. You invest at one point of time and within a couple of years the government changes. So there are different set of challenges that we have to undergo, especially in the sub-Saharan belt. So I think one of the things that is key here is to really understand and analyze with the correct local stakeholders and collaborate with them in order to get on-ground intelligence. Very rightfully said, protection of IP and ease of doing business in every country is very important. And like you mentioned initially, what suggestions we would give, I think this country is a true testament to how leadership should be, the UAE. With the law, with the regulation, and with all the objectives surrounding the specific topic, we see how protection and of course access to investors and technology is being made more mainstream here. Just 48 hours ago, the Crown Prince of Dubai made an announcement about a crowdfunding platform, Dubai Next, which will be supporting entrepreneurs and technologies in this part of the world. So initiatives like this reinforce and validate the value of how much this country is making sure that it gives more and more access and inclusion to every kind of company. And of course, protection of intellectual property right, ensuring that there is enough investor confidence and stability surrounding this is very, very important. And again, I reiterate, the leadership of this country is really a correct and the most appropriate testament to how it should be. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Abu Dieng, right. In your opinion, how was setting investment limits on foreign direct investment affected cross-border investments?
Ms. Berry, thank you for having me on the panel. Now, I just want to add one word on the previous question, and then I'll jump into this question, because one thing that I also wanted to add is when you're talking about cross-border investment, you have to look at the customs, the traditions in the country. You have to look at the rule of laws, what laws are there and applicable. But most importantly, you have to also look at the infrastructure that are in place. Because if you're a truck driver or your business is going to be depending on trucking and there's no trucks in that country, then your investment will most likely fail. Okay? And that also comes to the IP, because if the rules of laws are not strong, then your intellectual property is not protected. Okay, so anyway, just wanted to add that comment. Now, on your question in terms of cross-border investment, the limits, there's no limit from an investor point of view. I'm an investor. If I go to a country to invest, I don't see any limits. However, the country might be faced with rules and regulation that limits international investment. And that have to be dealt with by loosening up the regulation internationally. But also, we have to give more power to the private investors by giving them the right protection so that they can feel comfortable to invest more money. If I'm going to go invest $100 million in a country and I don't feel protected, then I might not be want to do it. But if I feel protected for $100 million, then I feel that I might be more encouraged to do $1 billion. So it all has to do with what protection the investor has. Okay?
Okay. What kind of protection would you suggest that would be more, what would be more appropriate and should be improved at the moment, especially on the African continent?
In the African continent, see, protection first is the rule of laws that are in place. The second protection is a competition, because if as an investor you're coming in, you are risking your money. You have 192 countries in the world you can invest your money. But if you choose one country in Africa, you don't want to invest at a loss. So the government in place have to put in place a system that will protect you against major competition, but also that will give you some loosening up on the customs, on the fees, and all of the things that can make your business profitable, and that makes you feel more encouraged to do more.
Fair enough. Would you like to add something to that? Mr. Steele, Dr. Steele, sorry.
I think what I would add to that is when you're looking at investing inside of a region, I represent investors who are interested in doing business, and one of the reasons why they would consider me to do that is they want somebody who's going to go on the ground and feel the environment and the culture. And a lot of times the dynamics of culture create challenges for cross-border relationships. For example, if I have to use a specific example, some regions are so busy with their business, they don't have time for their mobile phones. They don't have time for emails. And I think a lot of us are aware that emails and mobile phones are so intricately wrapped up in business cross-border. And when you have regions where individuals don't answer an email in 2 weeks, and persons want to close a deal with partners in Italy, in France, in Switzerland, and everybody's waiting for a response. And you hear an African gentleman, what is the problem now, my baby? You get that because they're busy. Everyone is busy, but those are very important dynamics. And then investors are saying they're not serious. But it's not that they're not serious, they are serious, but the dynamics of managing the immediate, a lot of times, devoid individuals of the responsibility of follow-up. So I think equally that Leaders Without Borders Development Center and the Class of Steel plugin, I think that the dynamics that we offer with regards to mentoring and teaching individuals appropriate things if you want to engage internationally, I believe that those initiatives government should put in place, that the young university students that are coming out, their focus, we need to change the generation that's coming. The 2030 agenda is upon us, and we have to be ready to engage audiences with a new mindset and a new thinking pattern so that we can be successful. I think that's my input.
It's actually an interesting point. I think, Archie, you can relate to that. I've looked at some of your comments, and I think competency development and skills development is probably one of the key areas at the moment in terms of even trade and investment, you can invest as much money as you want in Africa at the moment or anywhere else. If you don't have the skills and the human capacity to actually manage and develop, then nothing is going to come from that. So what do you think of that?
Well, I think technology has been this fantastic enabler in order to, for us, all of us, to really capitalize on the opportunities that lie in front of us. I think constant upskilling and reskilling is really the trend that is ongoing. And if we don't reskill, if we don't reinvent the ways we do our business, then in that case, we would probably be behind the curve. So our quintessential trade has been within the commodities sector, but during the pandemic, and of course whilst we understood the value of tokenization by leveraging blockchain technology and raising liquidity for the commodity trade, which is extremely traditional. So we also learned, and I think it's no harm in admitting that we have to, all of us have to constantly reskill. We have to do that, because that is not just the need of the hour. It is extremely important, critical, that we ourselves understand that fully. So yes, definitely, skilling and upskilling is one of the core tenets, I think, in order to really witness sustainable progress.
So basically what we're seeing in this century actually, is the key is going to be learning, right? How to learn. It's not so much of what you know, it's how you're going to get to know what you're supposed to know, and then de-learn, because we actually don't know where we're going at this stage exactly. Just going back to the investment part, because I'm actually passionate about skills development, but we'll go back to the finance part. What role does the exchange rate play in the success of the business, especially of an investor from a weaker economy into a stronger economy, and how can such challenges, if any, be resolved? Mr. Ahmed?
For the rate exchange, it is one of the most play a role on the economy in different region, which should be taken into consideration, especially if there is like cross businesses between the different region and the transferring the investment from one area to another area. So I think this part, it is not like a very easy question to be asked, and then there is very simple answer to be answered, like, okay, this is the solution should be, or this is. But what I want to say is, especially for the weaker economy, that's when they will do the investor I'm talking now, or entrepreneurship. I'm not talking about the regime or government levels. At this entrepreneur levels, what they need to do is at this things that they have to be connected with the international businesses, and they have to develop their businesses internally, because this is opportunity for them, which mean the weaker economy, that mean the cheaper labor, the cheaper human resources which will be available. So instead that we will allow the other big investor to come to this market and to take the majority of the market. The local entrepreneurship, they have to identify the opportunity internally, and they have to have, as you mentioned just now, which is knowledge. As much knowledge you will do have of the market, this will enable the international investors to partner with you, to come and board with you. So this is at the level of the entrepreneurship level. If you will go to the level of the government sectors, there is another opportunity, which is exporting. So the exporting here in this weaker economies will be even like more beneficiary for these countries, especially if you are bringing like currency from outside. So developing the structure and developing the infrastructure of exporting and manufacturing industry internally, this is will gonna help the country itself. So just the requirement from the government that they have to establish very strong manufacturing and exporting system inside that country, and the rest will come by itself.
Any other comments?
Yes,
So,
just add regarding the exchange rate, that sometimes I think it is purposely done to slow down growth. Okay, I'm going to just give an example. My business is based in the United States. You have 52 states in the United States. From New York to California, you use the US dollars. But imagine if from New York you had to use a different currency just to do business in New Jersey. It would be a nightmare. So if you take that concept into Africa now, you have, in Nigeria, you have Naira. So a Nigerian businessman have all the issues to invest in Senegal because you have Naira and CFA. So the central bank of Nigeria doesn't deal with CFA. So in order for a Nigerian businessman to do business in Senegal, have employees in Senegal and pay them in CFA, which is the local currency in Senegal, they have to transfer their Naira into European currency first. Then from there transfer it to CFA, which is a double loss for the employer to do that. So this slows growth because if I'm a Nigerian, I don't want to do that. Same thing with what Dr. Ahmed said in terms of exporting. If you're in Senegal and you have CFA, which is based on the French currency, and then the dollar drops, then your CFA has a little bit more value. But if the dollar goes up, you don't want to export to the United States because your product is going to cost you more. So we have to look at the same system we have in the United States, the one currency in Africa. And if we do that, then that facilitates cross-border, because we're talking about cross-border business. We just voted into law in Africa, the African Free Trade regulations, right? We cannot have that free trade unless we have cross-border freely, first starting with free currency. We don't have to worry about changing from Naira to cedis in Ghana, Naira to CFA, and so on and so forth. Okay?
What are